Well, hello, everybody. And this week, I've got somebody I've got to know quite well over the past year. Well, nearly a year now. That probably isn't nearly a year, but it feels like a year. And that's Suzy Orr. And Suzy Orr started a group, a networking group called Unique Ladies. And ladies, for me, this is the nicest networking group I have ever been involved in. I've never met so many lovely, supportive women on it. So, Suzy, how on earth did you get going with Unique Ladies? And why Unique Ladies? I mean, I know we're unique, but why?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? The name Unique came because at the time someone was trying to sell me some mascara from another company that was called Unique, but it was Younique or whatever. So I was being tempted to buy mascara, but thinking about a networking group I was going to start. And then I thought, oh, Unique Ladies, that could be a good name for we're all unique, aren't we?
We
So,
are,
so
absolutely.
that's where the name came from. I did 30 odd years in IT and telecoms. So if I go right back to sort of when I left school, I wanted to leave home. And I decided that if I got a job as a hotel manager, I could leave home. I then sussed out the courses and realised that I didn't want to do French and food service and cooking. So I opted to be a hotel receptionist where I could just do a little bit of French and food service, but it was more about the admin and the bookkeeping.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And
I
meeting
trotted.
people again, I expect.
Well, that was interesting because I never thought that I was a very confident person. I certainly wasn't when I was growing up. I was quite shy. But being taught at the age of 17 how to meet and greet businessmen coming into hotels and how to just give them a warm welcome
Right.
has certainly stood me in good stead for what I do at Unique Ladies.
And I apologize for this, but we have an extra guest today. I know Suzy has a black cat too, so I didn't feel I could exclude her. So don't worry about it if we just get tail bombed every now and again. Suzy, I'm sorry Kellen interrupted you.
That's absolutely fine. That's what they do, isn't it?
Isn't it just?
I started off as a hotel receptionist and became confident in speaking to people in business, I guess, at a young age. I then became a PA to two directors of an IT
Can
company.
I just
Like,
can I just come in there a minute? I love this that they trained you how to meet and greet like businessmen. And I mean, you were at 17, 18 sort of thing. How did that go? How did it work?
I think it was just recognizing that some of these guys that were coming into the hotel were, stressed. Everything had to be done for
Right.
them. It was making sure they were comfortable when they got there. If they needed anything, if they needed more tea or coffee in the room, just get it to them. Just, it was just simple things like that. Just smiling when they came in and saying, good evening. Have you had a good day? Have you had a good journey here?
Yeah.
Just putting people at ease. At the time, they were predominantly businessmen. You didn't get very many business women.
Mm.
So that was however many years ago. I'm 60 now, so I'm not good at math, but it was a few years ago.
But even still, that's really good though, because I think people don't realize a lot of people seem to think, businessmen is like they're being tough and full of it and, totally on the ball the whole time. But they get stressed like everybody else, don't they?
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes we had situations where the wives were trying to get them because there was an issue. I remember there was an issue with a child and she couldn't get hold of her husband. So that, all he wants to do when he gets there is get this message that he needs to make this important call home.
Yeah.
We had some other interesting people. We actually had a couple of football teams stay, and I, I can remember, I'm not going to name any names, but there were two very well-known footballers who were the rudest men I've ever met in my life.
Really?
And I wouldn't have, their behaviour shocks me. But, that
That's
was me
life,
at sort
isn't
of
it?
17, 18 growing up.
Yeah,
it was an eye opener.
absolutely. So then you went into IT. I share IT with you slightly because I used to be a software boffin.
Yeah.
I gather I'm not allowed to say boffin anymore.
Don't know what's allowed and what's not allowed anymore.
No, I give up. I was a software boffin, take it or leave it. So what did you do in IT?
Well, I actually started as a PA to two directors of an IT company. And then one of them, who was avoiding taking a call one day, put the guy back to me on the phone and said, "Speak to Susie, she runs the company." And it became, and the other thing they did, we used to do a show every year at the Barbican called the Deck User Show. And
Oh no,
yeah,
Beck.
yeah. So we would
That's the company whose computers I started with.
Digital Equipment Corp.
Yes.
Well, there you
Oh
go.
my God.
The
This is the
VAX
thing you didn't
750s
know.
and PDP 11s and lots of things like that.
These two blooming great big mainframe things are probably still in the third
Yeah.
basement of the old War Office gathering
Well,
dust. Oh, what a thing.
these guys used to, they were deck brokers, so they used to buy them in
Yeah,
from the States predominantly, and then they'd split them up and they'd resell them to Islamabad. We used to do a lot with Islamabad University, and
yeah.
we'd sell them all over the place.
Wow.
So one year we did the deck user show, and again, this is going back to the early 80s, and I was standing on the stall collecting people's business cards like you do. And then when we went back to the office, the two directors were doing their private pilot's licenses, so they were out for a lot of the summer. And when they came back in after the summer, they called me in the office and said, how come we've got all these sales? And I said, well, all those business cards that I got, I've sort of put them in a Rolodex, but I rang everybody and said, "Hi, it's Susie from the Deck User Show. Is there anything that you need at the moment? Anything we can help me with?" And when there was, I knew where to go to get it. So I went to get it, got it, made a profit on it, and moved it on. And they were a little bit stunned, and they called me back in at sort of 5 o'clock, and they said, "We don't want you to be our PA anymore." And at which point my bottom lip went, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I've really stepped on someone's
Yeah.
toes here." They said, "We want to buy you a car and make you our sales manager." I was like,
Whoa.
I'm not a salesperson. They said, "You absolutely are." But a lot of that, see, I think I'm the friendly northerner. And I was in the Chalfonts at the time, in Chalfont St Giles is where the office was. And I just think a lot of this is not being discriminatory or anything, but a lot of southern people aren't as friendly as the northerners. And because my manner was very, "Hi, how are you doing?"
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah.
So I got my car, and I got my little red XR3. And we had one of our biggest clients was British Coal at the time. So I used to drive up the motorway and go to collieries where there'd be lots of men that were as black as the ace of spades, and sell them the second user deck equipment.
Yeah.
And did it very successfully.
Wow, that is stunning. I love it. I love it. But I can imagine, we don't want you to be our PA anymore. And you think, oh my God, inside. But
Yeah.
what a way to get promotion. But you were selling.
I was selling. I just didn't think of myself as a salesperson. And I mean,
Mm.
that went on. And when I left that business because I was moving back up north, I had a marriage breakup when I was down south, and I came back up north. And I went to work for a big technology company, and ended up ultimately actually with Virgin Media Business in telecoms. So there was a bit of crossover IT and telecoms, and I ended up as a senior account director looking after some rather large business accounts.
Yeah.
But again, for me, it was always that account management, that getting to know your clients and being interested. And I've always been interested in people. And it worked.
Yeah.
And it worked right up until, and I only know this now, but I didn't know it then, but it worked right up until menopause hit.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And
Makes such a difference.
again, I didn't know what was going on with me, but I started very suddenly suffering with anxiety.
Mm.
And I used to have to go to our Sheffield office on a Tuesday. I'd go on Tuesday, stay over and work there on a Wednesday. And 2 consecutive Tuesdays, I found myself sitting at my dressing table crying because I had to drive to Sheffield, which is ludicrous. But at the time, I knew there was something wrong.
Yeah.
I had a meeting with my sales director, and the only word I could use was that I was disenchanted with everything.
Yes.
And him, again, being a man, all he could say was, your numbers are great, you're hitting target. Anyway, I ended up just saying to him, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm sort of taking my ball home. And
Yeah.
I walked out there, and then I never went back. And it was agreed, we set up a handover.
Yeah.
And then I did a little bit of consultancy for 3 other companies over the course of about 18 months. But I said to my then husband, I'm going to start a women's business network. And he said, what are you going to do that for? I said, because I've been sort of booted and suited in this masculine environment for such a long time, and women don't do that. We are so different. We don't network like you do.
Yeah.
And he didn't understand it.
No.
But I phoned a friend who actually was the financial director at a local hotel, and said, could I maybe have one of your meeting rooms? I'll cover the cost for coffees and teas, but it's just something I'm sussing out. And I shared the event with the ladies I connected with over the past few years on LinkedIn, etc. And on the day, I had 45 ladies turn up. And that was the beginning of Unique Ladies Networking. It was a surprise to me, but literally at the end of that meeting, a couple of ladies from Bolton said to me, we need this in Bolton, we need you to do this in Bolton. And then I got pardon?
We so need it everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think even nowadays, I mean, it's got a lot better, but people don't realize what an enormous change the menopause is.
Yeah.
And it really does, it's sort of like it remakes you. It's a bit like sort of being a caterpillar turning into a butterfly again.
I think some people cope well with it, some not so. I mean, I've had a journey with it, and I'm happy with myself now. I'm in a really good place.
Yeah.
But it's not been without, cost. It cost me another marriage, and not that it was wholly to blame for, but it has a big impact.
Yeah.
And it changes you, like you say. It's like this butterfly comes out at the other end, and it's nothing like the caterpillar that was there before.
No.
And I think it comes with age as well. So you get to a certain age, and I was 60 last year. So all of a sudden it's like, hang on a minute. It wasn't 2 minutes since I was 21, and I still remember it. So it sort of hits you that you better get on and do what you like doing. You've only got one life. Let's just do it.
I feel that so much. And I mean, it was a big change. I started menopause very early at 42. And that, it tipped me out of a career too, completely, and into a very, very different one. And I think it's part of what's important to happen to you, but we're not told about anything like that. We're just told, oh, well, it's going to be this and that and the physical, and you might sort of find you get headaches or you got hot flushes or something, and you think, yeah, and then you get all that. And it's not, it's much more inside, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot more psychological. It's a lot more of a psychological impact
than
it is. I mean, there is a physical change. Which again, when you're young and you put a couple of pounds on, you can usually, go for a run or stop drinking wine for a week or whatever, and it drops off. And then all of a sudden you get to the stage where it doesn't.
No, it stays. It's definitely staying. I
think the psychological impact is huge. It's underestimated, and I've sailed through relatively easily, but I know an awful lot of women that have struggled and still struggle.
Yeah, and they don't tell you that either, because I mean, mine went on for about 10 or 12 years, and They don't tell you that. And at least maybe they do more now, but they certainly didn't then. And I still don't know that people know it. And there should be a lot more about it, because I think, and it was for me, and I'm thinking it is for you, it was actually, although it's, as somebody said once, what the caterpillar calls a nervous breakdown, the master calls a butterfly. And it is like that, you were what you were, what you knew, and then you're not. And I found it totally life-changing and very useful. And I know you did, because that's, as you say, when you started Unique Ladies.
Yeah, yeah. So the group started, well, we've been going 8 years now, so I was only ever going to run one network, but now we've got 10 groups, including that most of them we meet physically at different locations across the Northwest. But the online one that I do, that you come to, I started doing during lockdown. We went online straight away in lockdown because, again, of my knowledge from an IT and telecoms background, I felt it really easy to get onto Zoom at a time when a lot of people hadn't heard of Zoom. And I actually wrote an article that was well received called The Etiquette of Zoom.
Oh, wow.
It really talked about things like, being in the middle of the screen and facing the window so you've got good light on you, and putting the video off if the postman came, and just dealing with things and kids and animals if you needed to, but just to try and make people feel a little bit more comfortable, because 3 years ago none of us were comfortable with doing this, not to the extent we are now.
Whereas, I mean, everybody does it. I mean, somebody wants a call with me, they just book themselves into a Zoom call and we have this great chat and it's all fine. But 3 years ago, no.
And I think what happened, I was running the Bolton group, and there was a lady on from St Andrews in Scotland, and I'm sitting there thinking, why are you on here? It's the Bolton group. Why are you on from Scotland? And then I think there was another lady who was from Bolton, but she was in Amsterdam or somewhere in Holland. Anyway, the end of COVID hit in the September. We were all going back networking physically, and I spoke to the girls who run the other groups, and I said, I'm going to carry on doing an online one, because I'm going to call it a national one, because actually if you're online it could be international, you can get anybody on. And I also thought it served a purpose. If any of the ladies couldn't for any reason get to the normal network, they can jump on and meet people from further afield and widen the network. So I love the online one. It's great because, like, we have you on from Shropshire, and other ladies we've had them from York and Somerset and London and Scotland and Newcastle, and it's great. And then we do always have a core of people from the Northwest who are the ladies that obviously can't get to their networks, but it's just such a supportive, lovely group.
We are being catted today. I'm sorry about this, but I'm sure it'll be fine. That's what I find, that it is so supportive. And going back, you were saying about, you come from the north and you're very easily chatty. Well, as you know, my background is in the north. My mum was from Yorkshire and my dad was from Lancashire. I lived down south and I was born down south, but never mind. We all make mistakes. And but there is something about this, and people are getting better at it now. They're getting better at being open and chatty and normal with people, whereas it used to be like, and how was it for you, Suzy, when you were doing so and so and so and so? I mean, who wants to listen to that?
I still have a memory that a lady said there was a sandwich shop in Chalfont St Giles Chalfont St Peter that we used to go to, and the sales guy Tim came back one day and said he put the sandwich I'd ordered on the table, and he said, the woman in the shop asked me if that was for the northerner. And I said, why would she do that? And he said, because nobody else ever goes in and orders a corned beef and brown sauce on white bread. And I thought that was quite a nice sandwich to have. I still think it's a nice sandwich, but apparently nobody down south has corned beef and brown sauce.
It can be a bit snotty. It's much nicer when you go back down to where I was born, which is in Devon and Somerset, and I, lived in Somerset and Cornwall. We're a lot more like the Northerners,
Yeah,
definitely.
it's
We're a lot more
beautiful, isn't it?
friendly.
Yeah, yeah. I actually think most people are friendly in the south, but that they're a lot more aloof. I think if you speak to them like we do up north, there's like sort of a front, like what do you want? Instead of just saying good morning like I do in the supermarket or at a bus stop, wherever.
Yeah.
If you say good morning to somebody down, it's like nobody speaks on a tube.
No, no. And you're all there, with
Yeah,
you
and
up somebody else's armpit, and you never speak to each other.
and where I would want to say something about that.
I know, I know. Uh, we used to laugh about it when I used to travel, as I lived in London. We used to travel on the tube, and my husband did one of the best things on this. Like all men, he can be a pain in the butt, but he does occasionally have quite intelligent moments. Anyway, there we were. We were actually sitting down for a change, and everybody was there with the newspaper. And but it was only sort of like here, so the top of the newspaper was there, and a couple of people standing up with the newspaper and this sort of thing. And Paul can be quite wild when he wants to, so he went, "Woo!" on the tube. Can you imagine newspapers frantically going up in the air? I just buried my head in his shoulder because it was just like, yeah, I can't handle this.
Yeah, a lot of them wouldn't have had a clue how to react to that, would
They
they?
didn't at all. I mean, I imagine if I probably did that in Bolton or something like that, or Paul did, everybody'd be like, "Hey, what's it? What's that guy doing
They
then?"
join in, wouldn't they? Yeah.
And there'd be jokes about it and all that sort of thing. So I don't know quite what. Maybe I don't know what it is, but there is a kind of stiffness which is maybe losing itself now, which should be good.
Yeah.
But
Well,
what
I'm taking 20 ladies from Chorley down to London actually later on this month.
I was going to ask you about that because I know about this. Now, this is so exciting. You've got to hear it. Tell us.
Yeah, so, well, Lindsay Hoyle, who's the Speaker, Mr. Speaker in the House of Commons, is the MP for Chorley. Although as a Speaker, we don't have representation, and Chorley's my hometown.
Mm.
So for a couple of years, I was sort of nagging him via email to come and meet the ladies who come to the group, because we have a regular sort of 25 to 35 women every month at Chorley. It's a fantastic group. And eventually he arranged, we were going to do lunch with him. There were 20 ladies and we were having lunch. Unfortunately, it turned out to be the day after the Queen died, so it got cancelled. So obviously, we accepted that. That was fine. But I did go back and say we would like to pick up on this. So we managed to get in books again, but we could only have an hour. So I had 10 ladies come to meet him. And I just said, introduce yourselves, let him know what your business is. And they were varied. There's lots of different businesses. And some of them were thanking him for things that he'd done. Some of them were questioning him about things that they wanted to change or were interested in.
Yeah.
And at the end of the session, he came back in and he said to me, Susie, that was absolutely brilliant, so interesting.
Well done.
I'd like you to do one of these in Westminster. And I remembered Richard Branson all those years ago saying, if anybody gives you an opportunity, say yes and figure out how you're going to do it afterwards. So I just said, yes, I'd love to. And then thought, oh my God, how do I do that? Anyway, we managed to bring it all together. And we are now going down on the 26th of April. We are going to Prime Minister's Question Time. We are having a tour of Westminster. So, I mean, that in itself is, a once in a lifetime thing. But then he's offered us tea in the Speaker's house.
Wow.
And then he's given me the stateroom to run a network.
Oh.
So we've actually invited another, I think that we're limited to 36 in the room. So we've got Baroness Helen Newlove coming as our inspirational speaker.
Mm-hmm.
She's a lovely lady. I've met her at several different events. So she's going to come and talk. and we've invited another 15, I think it was, cross-party female MPs
Great.
to come and and our usual networks, we have a 10-minute speaker, and then we do round the table networking. We all tell each other what we do and any issues we've got in our business, and then we have an inspirational speaker. But on this occasion, I've just asked all the ladies to send to me questions that they'd like to ask of government. I'm going to collate them, so the 10 minutes will just be us firing these concerns
Yes.
to the group and seeing if we can get anywhere with it.
Excellent.
My main aim is for them to understand that we've over 2,000 women on our database, and we are women that are mothers, sisters, business owners, NHS users, drivers, so we are, a really good representation of society.
Yes.
All political parties as well.
Yeah.
And I think we're a really good resource. So if they need that resource, to answer questions, to, survey or whatever, then I want them to know that we're there and that they can use us. And what I'm thinking is I think you probably get our newsletter once a month that really tells everybody who the speakers are that we've got coming to the groups and any bits of news. But I was thinking of doing like a, Parliament corner or something. So if there's anything
very good
that needs to go out to the masses, we can ask on there and measure it for them.
Yeah. I think that's so important. I mean, I don't know. I mean, isn't if they need you, for me, Susie, they need you. They need us. And they don't talk to us. They don't ask us. They'll go and ask, the head of Dyson or somewhere like that. But they don't ask all of us women who are running our own businesses, working in the community, and we actually know what's going on.
Yeah.
We are a real resource to say, look, you get through us, because we talk to everybody. We're back to this, so like we're chatting to everybody all the time. And we know, and we can give it back to you and sort of say, look, don't get your knickers in a twist about this. This is what's really important.
Yeah.
And it makes such a difference to government if only people would use what we are.
I think that there appears to be a bit of a missing link there, in that they're all in their little world.
Yeah.
And I think they think that they're reaching the masses.
Yeah.
But I don't think they actually do.
No, I don't either.
They've certainly never spoken to us as a group of women in Chorley about things. But the opportunity's there to try and change that.
They don't down here in Shropshire either. I mean, there's a lot of women who run their own businesses, from little one-man bands to medium-sized stuff to actually quite big stuff that is doing quite a lot of work. And one of my female friends, she's running a whole thing on good food in Shropshire and liaising with farmers and helping them get into regenerative farming and all this sort of thing. And it's really quite a big thing. None of our MPs have spoken to her. And yet that's right where she needs to be, and the people who need to be heard.
Yeah.
So
we've a long way to go, haven't we? There's the country's in a strange place at the moment. I'm not really too sure about who I want to see at the top. And I think actually in a lot of ways it would be nice to for everyone just to, egos out the window, just collaborate, just work together as one.
That would be so much better for me. I mean, I go back, and I know you'll remember this, that Gary Glitter, want to be in my gang, my gang, my gang. And it all feels like that so often.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be. We're all in the same country. And we all have very similar problems, but, maybe it's a little bit different in Bolton to Shropshire or whatever. But why do we need to be my gang? In a sense, if we're going to have a my gang at all, it's Britain.
Yeah, I was going to say we're all British, aren't we? And it's
why can't we just have the British party? That is, why do we need a party at all? Why don't we just sort of all get together and talk about this? I don't know whether this will happen, because, as you say, everybody's ego seems to be like.
And I still feel rightly or wrongly, in business as well, everything's still very male
Yeah.
dominated. And with males, you have egos. I know you do with females
You
sometimes.
do, but it's different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I think we are far better at collaborative support and
I
without
think
ego.
so too. And I wonder if that's partly because, the woman in a household has so many jobs. And, the man's the breadwinner. And but much less now, actually. Let's get that one clear. But it's like, well, I'm winning the bread in our household. I'm also sorting out the garden. I'm also sorting out the local garden club that I'm part of, and da kind of thing. Whereas, one's husband might well be just doing one job.
Yeah,
And
that's what usually happens, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah,
And again, from a women's lib point of view, we did so well, didn't we? We got so far to get all these great jobs and get out to work and stuff. And yet the majority of us were still the ones going home doing the ironing and emptying the fridge and doing all
absolutely.
that stuff.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way, but we've an awful long way to go.
We do, and we need to be properly recognised. And I'm really hoping that, your meeting in Westminster is going to start saying, this is here.
Yeah,
This is important. We need to look at these people. And I think it'd be so important if only they do.
yeah.
But going right back, and which is taking me back up north again. My great aunt, who lived near Bolton, Um, her husband was a privy councillor in Victoria's time, and she was part of the women's lib movement, and she got her husband to put, I think it was the first Married Women's Property Act through.
Oh wow, that's brilliant.
Started to get us the vote.
Yay.
And it's sort of like, wow, I'm not all that fond of a lot of the rest of my family going back. I think they're a bit rubbish. But I thought, yeah, go for it, Ursula. You did a good job there.
Interestingly, the place that we hold our meetings in Chorley is called Shepherd's Ale House and Victoria Rooms. And
Right.
it's an old pub, a tiny little pub, but there's a beautiful big room that's the Victoria Rooms inside it. Very eclectic. It's a lovely, lovely place. And when I was talking to Greg, the owner, about us having the networks there, because they don't open till sort of lunchtime-ish. So we're okay in the morning, 9 till 11:30 for coffees and things.
Yeah.
And he said, interesting, when they were in the cellars, clearing things out after the previous owners and creating this lovely space that they've done, they found evidence that the Victoria Rooms, or the cellars of the Victoria Rooms, were the Chorley suffragettes used to meet. And I got goosebumps when he
Oh,
told
I have
me, and I
now.
said, "Oh my goodness, we've come home,"
Yeah.
because that's how it felt for me.
And it sort of feels similar to me because, I just wonder if my great aunt went there because she might well have
Yeah.
done.
It's not a million miles away from Bolton, is it? If you're going outside of Bolton,
Yeah.
Chorley's one of the
She
first places
got
you'll go.
around a bit. She was quite a lassie, and her husband was a great guy for that time. And, she was a free woman insofar as she could be. And so she might well have been there. Oh, I mean, it just went shiver right up my arms when you said it.
Interesting, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It
I
is.
remember hearing a meditation when I was away on holiday last summer, and the guy said that we are the total sum of all our ancestors, and that sort of stuck with me. So again, that you'll be feeling that from her. She's
Yeah,
part of you.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, and when lockdown was happening, I went on to Ancestry because I was bored and I wanted something to do. So I got back to being a Viking. So I got back to
Why?
600 and something. So I'm very much, well, I now think that everybody in England's probably got some Viking in them, because the more I learned about it, the more I thought, well, we're all from Sweden and Denmark. Um,
And then you get
but,
people like me who've got a bit of the Southwest France in them.
okay, that's
So,
interesting.
it's like they were really cosmopolitan, far more than I think most of us are taught.
Yeah.
And you get around the world, much more than they weren't sort of stuck in your little village in your own 20 miles at all. But yeah, but I
It's
mean,
interesting, isn't it?
Vikings a good lot, I mean, to go a Viking, I mean, to it because the word comes from to go a Viking, and that means to go exploring.
Oh, there you go then. And
Yeah,
I still explore. It's one of the things I like doing. I'm always going to different places.
I know
Always.
you are. It's dreadful. That I am going to ask a couple because you went off on a lovely holiday on your own last year. And can we hear a bit about it?
So it was actually the year before was the first time I went. So at the time, I'd separated from my husband, and he wouldn't have the COVID jabs or anything. So I was like, fine, that's whatever, your choice. But I felt that I needed a holiday.
Yeah.
And I have a lovely friend who comes to the network, Sarah, who's a travel counsellor. And I was going to go with another lady who I've met through the networks. We were going to have 10 days on a Greek island just to get some sunshine. And then the other lady couldn't get the time off work. And I sat there thinking, I really could do with a holiday.
Mm.
So I phoned Sarah and I said, would you price it up for me with a single supplement? Because I'm going to go on my own. I
Yeah.
thought, what can happen? I could just get a couple of books and, do what she called Shirley Valentine, go to
Yes.
Greece and get a couple of books and what have you. And she said to me, well, I could, but can I tell you about something else? And she started to tell me about this body holiday in St. Lucia. And it's an all-inclusive 5-star, beautiful place. And the package includes a trip to the spa every day.
Mm.
So you get a facial or a body massage or a scrub or whatever you want. Lots of different activities. So I would start in the morning at 7 with Tai Chi and
Mm.
doing stretch classes afterwards. They did some hardcore aerobics and stuff in the pool and on the beach, but I didn't bother with that.
No.
But I snorkeled every day and I
Yeah.
did a couple of trips out on a boat.
Mm.
And it was absolutely empowering
Yeah.
because I literally went on my own,
Mm.
not knowing a single person.
Mm.
And when I landed there at dinner, I was sort of sitting on my own, but there were lots of people sitting on their own, just looking out to the ocean. And it was quite late, it had gone dark. And the following day, when I went down for breakfast, there was a girl sitting down there who was on the same minibus transfer as me and just said, do you want to join me for breakfast? So I did. And we're still friends, which she went last year and she's booked to go again this year, the same time as me. What it did, in September they offer this solo month, so it's not like an 18 to 30s, it's just a lot of businessmen and women who just travel on their own.
Yeah.
And you get that you're very comfortable just being on the beach on your own or joining in with someone. Last year I actually tried water skiing one day with a guy. The day before, we were both sitting on the beach laughing at the men trying to get up water skiing and going, oh no, that's just, And then he sort of said to me, shall we have a go tomorrow? So I'm like, God, I'll meet you here at 11 o'clock. And I got up for like, a nanosecond and he didn't. It was hilarious. But, you can either you can be alone or you can be with people.
Mm.
And every evening there's a hosted table for dinner. But what you find is you'll meet people during the day and someone will say, do you want to join us? I've booked a table here. And it is absolutely wonderful. So when I booked to go last year, so the first year I went for a week. When I went last year, I booked 10 days and I booked the helicopter transfer as well.
Oh, wow.
That was amazing.
That would be.
We were actually flying over the rainforest and you could see the parrots flying and beautiful.
Oh, how gorgeous.
Yeah. And I'm going again in September this year for 10 days again.
Yeah. You see, I think that's so wonderful and it is so empowering. And people
Yes.
say, oh, well, I can't go on holiday on my own. Yes, you can. And you
Yeah.
can actually meet other people, and you're not going to get attacked, or you're not going to suddenly fall in love with some idiot or something like that.
It was a very safe
Yes.
place. I felt completely at ease at all times.
Yeah.
And like I said, you've got a choice there. If you don't feel like talking to anyone, you really don't have to.
Yeah.
But the classes that you do, you might see a couple of people walking up to the class, for example, and
Yeah.
you just get to, again, Northerner, I'll chat to anybody,
Yeah.
but you end up. I loved it. I think if that's the only holiday I can do every year, as long as I can afford to do that holiday, that will be the thing that I work for, to go and have those 10 days
Mm.
in the sunshine. I've sussed out the treatment. So there's 100 steps up to the spa. And so, you've got to
You're fit
walk
by the
up it.
time you get there.
Yeah, you've got
Yes.
to, and then the treatments are so gorgeous, and the 50-minute treatments, and the sun sets at 6 o'clock. So I started booking my treatments at 5 o'clock. So I have a day doing whatever I'm doing, and then I know I've got a lovely treatment. And then I go down the 100 steps and land back on the sofa by the bar, overlooking the ocean, and order a large Sauvignon Blanc and just
Ah,
watch the sunset.
yes.
I think the first day I did it, there was sort of me. And I think at the end of the week, or the 10 days, or the first time I was there when I'd sussed it, at the end of the week, there were about 10 of us sitting there, all with our Sauvignon Blancs or whatever.
Yeah.
And we'd have a drink, and then we'd go back to the rooms, get ready
Yeah.
for dinner or whatever we were doing that evening. But it was just a nice pace. Everything was lovely. And the staff there are amazing. In fact, when we were there last year, they had the Queen's funeral,
Of course, yes.
and
Yes.
we were told that they would be showing it in the live, because there's no TVs in the rooms there. It's all very, health. You can have music and have your own iTunes piped in and
Yeah.
whatever, but there's no TV. So they put a flat screen in the library. And I think it was something like 5 a.m. in the morning because of the time difference. So quite a few of us went down there, and they put the most beautiful floral arrangements all over the library,
Amazing.
all around the TV.
Yeah.
And they put coffee and tea, banana bread, freshly baked.
Mm.
So everybody was sort of sitting, just watching the whole celebration of the Queen's life, I guess, really.
Yeah.
But what a lovely thing to do, so very thoughtful.
Isn't
And
it? Yeah.
all the way through the hotel, they have these beautiful floral arrangements, and they've been dedicated to the Queen from different departments in the hotel. It was such a nice thing to do.
Wasn't it just? And it's all the respect, it's the empowerment, it's feeling welcome and able to be you and wanted, and all of this stuff that is just so important. And I'm going to reverse now, because that's part of what I've found from going to Unique Ladies. So I recommend it to all of you out there. You can go and you just Google in Unique Ladies, and it will come up. The website comes up, and you can start getting involved, because it's so worthwhile. And you were saying about it being national and international. Why not?
Well, exactly. So I franchised it. So the franchises are only a 2.5 grand, which is it's a drop in the ocean, really. It's really covering my time to get everything set up, and
Yeah.
photo shoots for ladies and things. So currently we're all across the northwest,
Yeah.
but there is nothing to stop anybody in any town. I mean, if I had my dream, it would be to have one in every town, and everybody just support each other. Each of the groups work with a local charity as well, and we always give a couple of pounds, excuse me, from every paid ticket back to a charity of the year, which we do in November at the end of the year. And in Chorley last year, the local youth zone got £600. And this year it's Endeavour, which is a domestic abuse charity. In Bolton, it's Back Up, which is a charity that get kids off the street and into accommodation. We work with lots of different charities.
Yeah.
all these charities as well throughout the year have ladies' lunches. So one of the other great ways of networking for us is to go to the ladies' lunches. So I tend to take a couple of tables, and that's where we get to meet lovely ladies like yourself that turn up at these lunches, and we make money for charities and have a great time and a glass of fizz as well.
That's another part of this thing. This can all be fun. It
Yes.
hasn't got to be sort of
Yeah.
serious and hard work.
Yeah.
In fact, that's probably useless. I mean, we have so many laughs on the online unique ladies, and this sort of stuff is coming around, and fascinating people. And it's so important, at least I think it's so important, that we all get together and that we all talk and, as you say, support each other, because it just makes such a huge difference.
Yeah.
And if you want it, by the way, before I forget, all of Suzy's details and the unique ladies' details will all be going up in the show notes. So you haven't got to remember anything we say, but it's still easy. Unique ladies, Google, fine. And if you want to contact Suzy, you can do it there, because I think it's so worthwhile.
Yeah, and anybody who's listening who is maybe wants to speak about their business, we have opportunities for speakers online or in person. If anybody does blogs and they want to get involved, we share blogs on the internet as well, on the website.
Yeah.
And we've just launched a travel club, so that we're coming back to you, aren't we, with that? We launched it, we had a fabulous International Women's Day event.
Yes, which I missed, which was a bore, but there you go.
Well, let me tell you, I've already been making some big decisions and had some great conversations for next year. And I'm delighted to say that Chorley Borough Council have agreed to sponsor our International Women's Day event next year. It's on a Friday, the 8th of March, and it will be at Chorley Town Hall.
I've got to come.
You've got to come.
I've
You've
got
got
to
to
book it
come.
now. I was going to come this year, but you know how life gets in the way. Anyway, it's not going to get in the way. So I'm now
Hope not.
making the
Well,
note now.
I also have requested, and we can't confirm until much nearer the time, but I have asked Lindsay Hoyle if he will come and open it and say a few words. And I do know that he is at home in constituency on that Friday. So fingers crossed.
He hasn't got any excuse then.
He's no excuse.
He
No, I've
absolutely.
said it now publicly, so he needs to.
Yeah, and we're spreading it now, so he's going to come. So, get in there and do this sort of thing. But friends everywhere, get in touch with each other, stay in touch with each other, and support each other, because it makes such a huge difference, especially for us women.
I think one of
Even
the
if you're a
things
bloke, do it.
when I first started this, it was very much about a women's business network. And what I've realised over the 8 years is that it's so much more. The women that come for the camaraderie
Yes.
and come for the friendships that they've made. And often when we start our businesses, it's very lonely.
Yeah.
Some people are in families where nobody in the family has ever run a business.
Nope.
So they can't get the advice that they need.
Nope.
And we provide that sort of safe environment with lots and lots of resource and help from women who've successfully run businesses, some that have lost businesses but successfully come back. So they've got all this advice of what to do or what not to do.
Yeah.
And we create this really safe environment for these ladies to ask whatever they need to ask. And not, there's no such thing as a silly question in our groups.
No. Well, the only silly one is the one you didn't ask.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So do join us on these fantastic networking days. Online is fine once a month. If you can get to an in-person one, even better, because it really is worthwhile. Suzy, it's been grand talking to you. I've loved
it. It's been lovely chatting to you, and I never thought we'd be talking about PDP 1173s. And
well, there you go. Yeah. Neither did I. It's such a small world in some ways, isn't it? It is. It is. Well, I should be seeing you again soon, because
it's the 13th, isn't it? Yeah. The next one, the next
10
online
days.
So I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Seeing you there, and get in touch, guys. This is so worthwhile.
Thanks,
We'll
Ellen.
move on next week. Thank you, Susie. It's been grand.